have to be ready, and in some cases, it's not going to be nice. The fight's coming to you on a whole different level. They're loaded for bear. Joe Resinello.
Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always.
They're not going to take this lying down.
On the Crusade Channel, always on air, and always online at crusadechannel.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, oh man, are we going into the breach on the Crusade Channel.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers, let us go into the breach on the Crusade Channel. Always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, go into the chat room, crusadechannel.com/chat, and kick the tires in crusadechannel.com. Look under the hood, kick the tires. We're sure you're going to want to become a subscriber. And as always, we thank you for supporting us at the Frontline with Joe and Joe at the Frontline TV, primarily right now on YouTube. Joe Resinello, this is going to be a pretty interesting conversation. I'm excited about it myself because there's a lot going on. There's what I like to call a shocker story in here, where a liberal scholar, constitutional scholar, is saying things sounding awfully conservative. Now, we're going to get into that in a little bit, but Joe Resinello, there comes a time we have to realize. Remember, we talked about on the show before that Barack Obama was the most overturned president in modern memory. Okay, I think he lost so many cases at the Supreme Court, 7-2, 8-1, 9-0, because there's certain issues, there's certain cases you're just destined to lose. Okay. And I want to kick this over to you because I know this is something that's dear to your heart. The story itself reflects something that you yourself have been involved with. So I'm just going to hand it over to you because the Supreme Court of the United States just ruled 9-0 on something that I think is very important. I'm going to hand it over to you, Joe.
Well, as Joe was saying, this particular issue took place in Boston, but as far as it mirrored what I recently went through in my hometown, basically in the month of June, where I grew up in Rutherford, New Jersey, they flew a pride flag, and they went through the proper channels and they flew the pride flag. Well, we wanted to fly a right to life flag, and they wouldn't let us. So myself and a deacon spoke a number of times in front of the town council. Same situation. Obviously, we didn't sue. There was some press that reached out to me. They, to be honest with you, didn't follow through it, right, which is sad. But and we didn't take them to court. But frankly, now this is the same situation.
But now it's playing out. Okay. Now we have a clip. Our producer, Jonathan Ross, is going to cue that up. We have a clip just to let everybody know what's going on in Boston, of all places. Okay, not shocked to hear that this case emanates from Boston. So let's, Jonathan, play the clip, and then we'll come back and we're going to have a larger conversation.
Flag at the center of a Supreme Court fight will finally fly today at Boston City Hall, but now local leaders want to change future flag requests. Katrina Kincaid is live with all the details on this. Katrina.
Brianna, the Camp Constitution Christian flag will be raised here at City Hall Plaza on the flagpoles at 11 a.m. this morning after the Supreme Court ruled that the city violated the rights of the Christian group who wanted to fly their flag. It all started in 2017 when Camp Constitution, a conservative Christian organization, applied to fly its flag with a red cross outside of City Hall. It was part of a program that allowed private groups to fly flags while holding events on the plaza below. The city said no, citing separation of church and state, and then the organization sued, and ultimately it ended up at the Supreme Court. Then in June, the justices sided with the group, saying that the city violated the group's free speech rights, and now that flag will be flying today.
So we're looking forward to the opportunity to just gather together to celebrate freedom, because really this is freedom for everyone. It's not just freedom for Camp Constitution House, Shirtlift, or religious viewpoints. It's the freedom of speech for everyone to be able to express their viewpoint without discrimination.
But the Supreme Court did say the city could change its standards so that the flagpole would be covered under government speech, and the city council has done just that by filing an ordinance that says in the future, if any group wants to fly their flag on City Hall Plaza, they'll either need a proclamation from the mayor or a resolution from the city council. And Mayor Wu is in favor of that measure. In Boston, Katrina Kincaid, WBZ This Morning.
Now, people have to look at that, Joe Resinello. They have to listen to that, okay? You knew this was going to happen. Let's not go to how Boston is going to react, how the leftist rage mob is going to react, because, oh, heaven forbid, Joe Resinello, Christians should have their rights protected, even in the public square. But let's talk about, I'm going to hand it over to you. Let's talk about the decision itself. What is it? What does the decision itself say to you?
Well, it's a lock. A lot of what the left is trying to do is not constitutional. Under Barack Obama, it's been proven. He lost more cases in front of the Supreme Court. Now, look this up if someone doesn't believe me.
Go ahead. Fact check.
Any modern president. And to Joe's point, what he said, 7-2, 9-0. This is 9-0. That's the 3 liberal Supreme Court justices voted that says you got to do it. And that's a lot of this stuff. And this is something that I've said from the beginning. I do not fear this woke stuff one iota, because it's not constitutional. You cannot basically impel speech. You can't. You can't do it. You can't tell me, like, based upon the fact that I'm white, that I'm a racist. Just by I didn't know, but you can't do that.
Right.
It's like you can't say certain, like, I have rights too. I have a First Amendment right. I have a right to what's it called? Believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. I have rights.
Right.
Now, if the country changes, what I mean by changes, where we have a strong-armed dictator, they rip the Constitution in two, they destroy the courts, they smash the Senate and the Congress, like, say, it's basically a puppet government like in the Soviet Union or Russia, whatever you want to call them, or China, then yes, you can do that. But as it stands right now, you can't. And in time, all this stuff, when it goes to the court, we saw that in Washington State with the coach that wanted to pray.
That's right.
It's all going to fall apart.
Well, what they're going to do, Joe, and you caught it at the end of the clip. I never saw 2 more sad reporters, by the way, reporting on that story. It's almost like this was a defeat for them, because it probably was, because most reporters are liberals. Most of them are on the left. But now, what did Breyer do, though? In fairness to a lot of people, would say, well, Breyer and the rest of them, Kagan, Sotomayor, okay, what did Breyer do? He basically offered them an out. So he offers them an out, and he says, well, if you make a flag government speech, then we could do something about it. Now, here's my question. Well, what happens when the atheists want to fly a flag? But you're saying that it's government speech. That means that you can't fly this flag, this Christian flag, because you changed flying a flag in the town square in Boston to government speech. What do you do with the atheists? When the atheist wants to run their flag up there, and you're going to let them do it because you're Boston, you're basically got one foot in hell and the other on a banana peel, okay? Because that's the way Massachusetts is. You're going to let the atheists fly the flag. You're going to find yourself back in court again, because you could hide under the establishment clause all you want. Flying a flag representing a group of people that live in Boston. Let's remember, Joe, there's a lot of Catholics in Boston. A lot of faithful Catholics in Boston, by the way. Okay, so we'd be clear about that. They're going to get a little pissed off, and they're going to say, "Look, you let everybody else fly their flags, but you hide behind the establishment clause. You won't let us fly ours, and you're going to call flying a flag government speech." Well, we are represent, like you said, Joe. I'm a citizen too. Okay. And I get to fly my flag. And why does it matter? What does it mean? You're not establishing a religion if you let me fly my flag. You're respecting my rights as a Christian in your community. But they want to deny that too. Joe, I will always go back to it and I'll hand it over to you. It's like Tim Gordon said on our show that time. The left looks in the room, they see they got 99% of it covered, and the first question they ask is they say, why don't we have that other 1%? And then they go right after it. And that's the truth, Joe.
Well, they don't want to respect our rights, but we have them. That's again, and you have to fight for them. And that's why you go to court.
But Joe, but my point is that Breyer gave them an out. Breyer, in fairness, did vote with the others 9-0 to say, no, of course, you violated this group's First Amendment right to free expression. Okay. But he gave them an out. He said, turn it into government speech and then we'll revisit it. You see, he's a scumbag too when it comes to that.
Well, all I would say is this, then no flag should fly. That's the answer. It's a pluralistic society. Like, we all pay taxes, and I have to respect, God respects them. God respects your free will. I have to respect your free will too. If you don't want to believe in God, I will respect that. But here's the deal. You have to respect me because I have a First Amendment right. And I will take you to court and I will win every single time. The answer to this is just what should have happened in Rutherford. No flags fly. The American flag flies. The state flag flies. And that's it.
That's it.
The end. I don't care. I don't want the friggin' Grand Poopah Raccoon Lodge flag flying. I don't want the Mason flag. The Catholic Church flag shouldn't fly because we don't live in a theocracy. The American flag, the state flag. That's it.
Right.
The answer. Some people are just sick. These solutions are so simple. They're children. They're simply children. And they don't want to hear basic common sense solutions. Okay, fine. You don't fly your flag. I don't fly mine. No ideology. The American flag, the state flag, the conversation's over. Everyone goes home.
But Joe, but this is where I have to say, I don't think I'm disagreeing with you here at the front line with Joe and Joe on the Crusade channel. But Joe, here's the thing. I do think we're dealing with children. Remember, Joe, when we were kids, you remember there was always that kid who didn't get his way, but he brought the ball and he took the ball home with him. If you don't let me play, I'm taking the ball, I'm going home. In the meantime, we had to let him play, even though he sucked, but he had the football. And if we didn't have the football, we can't play. All right. These people are the same way. They're children. They are perfectly content with telling you, Joe Resinello, we don't care about your rights. We'll fly a rainbow flag. We'll fly an atheist flag. We'll fly any flag we want. We don't care about your rights. We're not interested in your pluralism. We don't want a Christian flag flying in the town square, and we want our flag flying there. Joe, again, children. Children is what they are. The good thing about it is this. Usually if you chastise a child the right way, they're going to listen. I mean, these people are a bit psychotic, and we're going to get into that a little bit later on. But Joe, they're not interested in.
No, but then you take
what
them
you're
to
guilty
court,
of, Joe. I'm going to hand it over to you. What you're guilty of is you're guilty of being a little bit too fair. Now, I would agree with you. People on the Crusade channel would agree with you. People on social media would agree with you. Yes, Joe Resinello is being very fair, but we are not dealing with people who give a darn about fairness.
But that's okay. But then you take them to court and you beat them.
Hopefully you
that's
win.
it. You see, and it's the same thing with companies. You take them to court and you take their money. You see, that's the answer. The answer to this is this. You always give people a chance. You always give them a fair shake. If not, you go to court and you beat them, and it costs money. If it's a company and you're trying to basically take away my rights as an American citizen, you don't have the right to do that. And I'm going to sue you, and it's not going to be for $10,000.
No.
It's going to be for a lot
Millions.
of money. So this is what I mean. And in this case, you take them to court and you win 9-0 every single time. It's the same thing with the guns. I don't have guns. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But the Constitution says you can have them, so you can. And here's the deal. If you don't like it, you're in the wrong country. And if you want to fight it, change the Constitution legally. But if you can't, this is the way it is.
Well,
and I'm going to take you to court. You
Joe,
can
obviously they
stomp your
can't.
feet like a child all you want. I'm going to beat you every time the
Well, Joe,
right way.
remember something. The reason why they introduced, I don't know when it was, 70, 80, 90 years ago, this concept, this legal concept of substantive due process. Substantive due process, for all our listeners out there at the Crusade channel, please go look it up. All it is a means by which the left could write rights into the Constitution that are not there without doing what you just said, Joe Resinello, without going through the constitutional process of an amendment. Adding it, you want to ban guns? You know what you got to do to Joe, you know what you got to do to revoke or rescind an amendment to the
Very
Constitution?
hard.
You have to get 3/4. You have to, I believe it's 2/3 of the Senate and the House, and you have to get 3/4 of the state legislatures. I believe I'm right in that. I could have my numbers opposite, whatever, but it's something astronomical like that. It has to be so overwhelmingly popular, both in the House and the Senate and the states. Okay, you're not getting rid of the Second Amendment. You're not. There's no way you're doing that. And the bottom line is, you mentioned about the Second Amendment, but my point was about substantive due process. They say, well, we'll assume rights in the Constitution, and we'll call it substantive due process, because they know, Joe, for the entire agenda, not just for guns, their entire agenda, they would never get it through. It would never get through a constitutional process. That's why they hate the Constitution. They've proven since Roe versus Wade, and even before that they hate the Constitution. Okay, and they try to get around it because on a popular level, Joe, their ideas suck, and they will go over like a lead balloon. It's the bottom line. So you're at the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Please remember to go on the website, crusadechannel.com, kick the tires, okay? And, take a look at everything. We believe you're going to want to become a member. So, Joe, can you hear me all right? Joe?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So let's move on, okay? So we're talking about what happens in the individual states, okay? But before we get to that real quick, when it comes to the left, Joe, if you're a black woman, you must be a liberal in order to be defended. If you are a homosexual, you must be a liberal to be defended by them, okay? If you're from another country, like a Jamaican or a Haitian, okay, you have to be a liberal in order to be defended by the left, okay? But if you're conservative, if any of that group, if you have conservative ideas, you are the enemy, okay? They proved that with Amy Coney Barrett. She's a woman, but they attacked her, okay? They proved it with many, let's say, conservative homosexuals, people like Rick Grinnell. They attacked them and people like that, okay? Obviously, they do that with Clarence Thomas and black conservatives, okay? Well, now, Ron DeSantis, who we're gaining a lot of respect for, he's had a 2-year battle over his own Supreme Court nominee, who happens to be a black woman from Jamaica. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Well, this is true. It took him, as Joe said, 2 years to get this woman on the Supreme Court. Her name is Renatha Francis. She was born in Jamaica. She went to law school in Florida. The problem is this. I mean, you see, this goes to show you how they look at things. And here they're trying to defend African Americans. Well, here's an African American. You want her to move forward? The answer is no. Why? Because this is what she says. Supreme Court Justice, I will apply the law as it is written by the people's duly elected representatives, knowing that I am a member of the judiciary in a system with separation of powers. Basically, she's saying I'm not going to be an activist judge, and judges shouldn't be activists.
Right.
That goes for anybody. There shouldn't be activist judges. There shouldn't be. Listen, it is what it is. It's like the Catholic Church. It says it, do it. It comes down to that. Right. And if you don't like it, particularly not the church, but in terms of, in the church, then leave. You don't like it. It's not your church. It's God's. It's the same thing with the country. If you want to change it, go through the process. If you don't, Well, guess what? You fight them in court. And frankly, the law is the law. And it's not for you to make up. And here's the good thing. There's a lot of layers in this country. That's one thing I will say about the judiciary. You lose on the state, you can go to the federal level. There's an appeal, there's an what's it called? An appeals level. Then there's the Supreme Court. It's very hard to fudge it all the way through. You could beat a couple of the layers, you can get like some ridiculous ruling, but if you keep fighting it, the problem is it's money. It's like everything. The average citizen doesn't have that type of money. But if you have a cause and someone wants to do it pro bono and they take a third of it, they may do it. And if they do, ultimately, I'm going to be honest with you. Yes, there are situations where we don't have justice. There's injustices. But I'll tell you what, it's tough to fudge it all the way through. Just like we just saw, 9-0. Right. Don't think that Sotomayor, what's it called, didn't bite her upper lip when she probably had to vote for that. Because to be honest with you, there's also a credibility factor.
Right.
There's certain things you don't even have to go to law school to vote for. It's as clear as day. And a lot of this stuff, frankly, it simply isn't constitutional. And believe it or not, yes, they have done damage to this country, the left. The Constitution is still there. The courts are still there.
I
and
agree,
frankly,
Joe.
people have to use them.
Well, no, Joe, I agree 1,000%. At the Frontline with Joe and Joe, always on air and always online on the Crusade channel at crusadechannel.com. I agree. Let's bring this conversation to a little bit more of a Joe and Joe conversation, okay? As far as my personal reaction to this woman worked hard, okay? This woman fell just short of being 10 years in the bar. And some idiot leftist, yes, I'm not calling anybody an idiot, Joe. I'm talking about some amorphous leftist out there, not anybody in particular, okay? Said she can't be on the court because she hasn't been in the bar 10 years. Let me ask you a question. If Ketanji Brown Jackson came just short of that and Republicans said, wait, she's not qualified. She hasn't been on the bar for 10 years. We're going to put a halt to this till she is. What do you think the reaction would have been on the other side? It would have been like, you're picking on the black woman. You're discriminating against her. Why? Because she hasn't been in the bar for 10 years, some arbitrary number. But that's what they're doing. They actually tried to block this nomination because they said she hasn't been a member of the bar for 10 years. Now, so obviously DeSantis waited it out, okay, and she waited it out. And thank God she's now on the Florida Supreme Court. This is a good woman, okay? Yeah, she's good because she's Christian. All you atheists out there and secularists and leftists, she's a good woman because she's a Christian woman. She's a family woman. She's a mother, okay? She has conservative values, okay? That's why, and we want her on the court, and I don't care. I don't care that she hasn't been a member of the bar for 10 years. But Joe, think about how sad it is. Can you see a Ted Cruz blocking a nomination of a justice that's, let's say, a black woman, but a liberal, and the reaction to the left if they said, well, pulling up a technicality, because it's like a technicality. To say that the woman hasn't been a member of the bar for 10 years, therefore we're going to block her nomination, that's simply a technicality that you could just say, okay, we don't care about that. Let's look at her record. You know what their reaction would have been. You're a racist. You're a misogynist. You hate women who are black. In the meantime, you and I are both married to black women who are sisters. But you see where I'm going, Joe? Like the outrage falls for me, and I know for you, on deaf ears. Spare me your outrage, okay? When Josh Hawley questions Ketanji Brown Jackson on the law, by the way, not on her personally, okay? And these idiots in Florida try to block this good woman, okay? This Democrat state representative, Geraldine Thompson. Floridians lack confidence in the courts because they see that people are being appointed based on their political agenda. Ketanji Brown Jackson was not appointed to the United States Supreme Court because it was based on a political agenda? Are you kidding me? And this Geraldine Thompson, a state rep in Florida, is saying that Renata Francis was nominated because of her political agenda. Let's assume she was. My attitude is, so what? I don't care. You do it on the left, but then you want to criticize the right for doing the same thing. Am I wrong, Joe? I'm sorry.
Well, I don't think the right, Joe. It's just that she's a constitutionalist. All judges should be constitutionalists. That's not a right and left thing. That's just the law.
But for Joe, they've made. But you understand my point is that for in our lifetimes, Joe, you're 50, what, 2? I'm 54. In our lifetimes, they have made. We have seen in our lifetimes the Supreme Court change from something to that I would describe exactly the way you just said it. You're just supposed to apply the law based on the Constitution. They have made the court political. Joe, they've been doing this for
No, I
years.
know that, but that's, to be honest with you, the fault of our representatives for nominating people like that. And that's the fault of Republicans because they frankly go along
They
because
let them
they're
right
not
through.
interested
They let them right
in
through.
rocking the boat, Joe. You know, I mean, they're like on many, we could go down the litany of issues.
Right.
That's their fault. They don't represent the people. And frankly, they bastardized the law. It doesn't matter what, like, for instance, I am Catholic. Okay. If you choose to say live in a state, you're a Supreme Court justice in, say, New Jersey, the law is that abortion is legal. You have to apply the law. If you don't want to, you don't take that job. You see, it's the law. And you took the job, so you have to apply the law. If you're
Right.
not willing to do it, you don't take the job because you say, I can't take that job. And I've done that in my own career. People who've wanted me to do things to be like, to be honest with you, to lie. I'm not doing that. I'm not lying for a living. Sorry. I will work by the sweat of my brow. So my point is this, it's the law. There's no room for that. And that's the fault of our own representatives. And it's the fault of the people because they don't care. And they're sleeping at the wheel. Well, now we're reaping what we've sown. To be honest with you, all I want people to do, judges, this is the law. Follow it. That's it. It comes right down to, it doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter what political hat you have. Follow the law.
The problem is, Joe, we've been dealing with this for a very long time. And like all things in history, it takes time to change these things. Now, I agree with you. If you're telling me well, then a person who wants to be a judge, let's say, but the law, let's say in the state of New Jersey, the state constitution allows for abortion. Okay. On demand. I mean, the governor basically obviously could do what he wants. Okay. Then to say, all right, well, I'm not going to be a judge, but I'm going to fight against that law. I want that law changed. But then that's a function of the democratic process.
That's
you have
right.
to get people on board with your view. You have to elect people to the state legislature. Even more so now with the current Supreme Court makeup, the states are going to have more power. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Okay. States are going to have more power. So you're actually, Joe, I don't know about you, but in New Jersey, I threw away my state legislator votes. I didn't think they were even important. They are now, actually, because of this Supreme Court. Dare I say, because of Donald Trump and his judges. State legislatures, state representatives actually have a new importance in our country because you now have issues like abortion that are going back to the states. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Then if you can't apply the law because you disagree with the law, then you have to work to change the law. I
And
agree
that's
with
not
you.
your job. That job, you can't take that job. If you're
Well, that's not what a lot of people are going to do, Joe.
well,
a lot
that's
of people,
their business. They have
right,
to
right.
stand
No, I
before
agree.
God too. I have to worry about me, but I'm just saying, like that if you're a principled person, you can't do that. So, like, that's my point.
Right.
Like, the law is the law, and frankly, there should never be. It's like being Catholic. There is no hats. You're Catholic or you're not. You're an American or you're not. You believe in the country or you don't. And if
Right.
you want to change it, and there's things we can change, let's do it legally, right? If you don't, then take them to court and fight the good fight. And I still say you'll win a lot of the time. You just have to go through the process and you have to keep fighting and persevere.
Well, I was going to
And
say you're going to have to persevere through the process. The good thing is there are a lot of conservative. Let's just keep it conservative for a second. You have the St. Thomas More Society. You have American Center for Law and Justice. That's Jordan Sekulow, okay, and his brother. they will defend you if they see a constitutional issue at stake. So you could end up with Chris Ferrara from the St. Thomas More Society, or an attorney like that, or Jay Sekulow taking your case. If you feel you're being unjustly discriminated against by whether it's your state, your local municipality, your state, the federal government, you can follow a suit. And if it's got some teeth, if you're right, these guys will take your case. We have some legal power on our side, is what I'm saying, Joe Resinello. And
No, I
honestly, if you're
know
going
it.
to fight this
Trust
stuff,
me, I
you
know
got to
it.
employ it. You got
Well,
to
that's what
ask
it
these
is.
guys for help.
People, a lot of this I see from the beginning. It's smoke. Step through it. If you do that, listen, as long as you respect people, you give them, like, you don't discriminate, but I am allowed to believe what I want to believe, particularly under my religion, which is a right. And that has a lot to do with what the woke folks say I can't do. I'll beat you every time. I will
Right.
beat you every time. And people are, like, to be honest with you, they concede because they're afraid some people are going to call them names. You step through that smoke
You
and you
got it.
basically say, wrong.
You got
I
it,
will
Joe.
see you in court
Right.
and I'm going to win. I'm going to beat you. And that is how you do it. And frankly, we've seen it happen, and more people, I think it's going to happen more and more, to be truthful with you. And I think you're going to see more and more cases where companies are going to pay up. They're going to pay up. You're going to say something or do something to somebody unjustly. You're going to let them go, and they're going to get sued, and
Well,
they're going to lose.
I hope that people step up. And as far as Joe, in my earlier life, I probably would have been upset not to be invited to the cocktail party. That's a long time ago. And you want to know something right now? And for the last several years, I don't care. I really don't care. And if that's what sways people, if I got to go to a cocktail party where everybody is pro-abortion, pro-gay, pro this, pro that, and mostly anti-Catholic, you have to ask yourself a question: why would you want to be there in the first place? You know where I'm going with that,
Well,
Joe?
no, but you know something, Joe? This is where we're supposed to be in the mix. You could listen. I know what you're saying, and I don't really go to cocktail parties because I can't.
Yeah, no, I don't either. Let's
But
be
my
clear.
point is, like, God did not separate himself from people, sinners. We're not supposed to do that. Read what Chaput, the two books that he wrote on it. He condemns the Benedict option. That is not what Jesus did. We're supposed to be in the world. We're not supposed to hide. And frankly, there's ways to approach people with those type of behaviors. And frankly, if you know how to articulate the truth, there's nothing they can say other than call you names. And frankly, if you want to call me names, fine. I sleep very well. And that's my whole thing. That's how, to be honest with you, you want to fight the culture war, you don't run away. You don't
No.
run away. You stand your ground.
Well,
And
that's what we say all the time. I
but
hope
in
people.
that cocktail party,
Yeah,
obviously, like you don't run away. Like,
well, you
this
don't
is
run away.
like
Joe,
what's
you're
her
not
name?
going to
We
run
just
away.
interviewed Kristen. We're not supposed to live in ghettos as Catholics and hide. We're
No.
supposed to be in the world. Christ says you're supposed to be leaven. We're supposed to be salt in the world amongst people. And frankly, what you do is you have to know your stuff. You have to be able to articulate a point. Just like I did when I went to this town council, I articulated a point. And frankly, they had nothing to say.
I remember watching that video, by the way, and you sent it to me. And I thought in my or I think I joined it. I think you were live,
Yeah, you
and I asked,
joined the call.
and I joined it. I joined it anonymously. I was kind of like, because I didn't live in that town. I was in the next town over, but I joined it. I want to see, and it's Joe, spot on. Now I want to say this. I'm saying this for a reason, not to blow smoke. I promise you. Okay, spot on. You made your argument. You stated it clearly. So did the other gentleman that was with you. Okay, there was another person that you were
Yeah, it's
with on that.
Deacon. Deacon
The
Ray.
deacon. Okay, and they literally, I mean literally, I'm not just using the word. After the end of your statement, said, Okay, we'll take it under consideration. What's next on the agenda?
They
They
have
did
nothing to
not
say
address it at all.
because they
At all.
can't.
They
It's like
couldn't. That's my point. They couldn't
because the
address
thing
it.
is, it's like what Karapa used to say about abortion. I don't care who you are. You will not last 10 minutes with me on the subject. There's nothing to discuss. It's not like we're talking about physics. Like if someone's a billion times smarter than me, they're going to, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know physics. You're right. Fine. But on this, it's to be honest with you, there's nothing to discuss. And you either have nothing to say or you call me names. That's it. And that's what we're supposed to do. That's what Jesus did. Jesus stood his ground. He stood right up to Pilate. He told him straight into his face. He's told him. And this is how we're supposed to do it. We're supposed to be a witness in the world and not be afraid and take the hits, which means you may not get invited to the barbecue. You may not get the promotion. You may have to live under some type of financial distress, but you take the hit because that's what God did. I'll be honest with you. I did that before I was a professed Catholic because that's how I was raised. To be honest with you, that's just how I was raised.
Right.
My parents didn't take, and I can remember a guy I went to college with. His father was a cop. When he was a kid, he got hurt, and they were like, "Oh, sue the city." His father's like, "That's blood money. We don't do that. That's what decent people do. You don't take advantage of situations. That's how friggin' gavones live. That's a New Jersey term.
So explain, Joe. You're gonna have to explain to the audience what a gavone
But
is.
that's just what I'm saying. You don't live like that.
Right.
And this is, I mean, this is just, to me, it's just how you're raised.
Well, Joe, you're obviously you're spot on with that. At the Frontline with Joe and Joe on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Let's keep the conversation moving forward. Now, this might be an area of disagreement between Joe and I, so let me have everybody out there brace themselves, even though I don't think we're going to disagree. But here's the thing: I do think, okay, I think that when it comes to certain things, because the Supreme Court has taken action recently and given power back to the states, starting with Roe, but then we think it's going to trickle down a little bit more. And the Supreme Court is going to back out of the culture wars. Now, we think the left knows this, okay? In fact, we know the left knows this. So when you're getting states like California that want to boycott what they call, quote unquote, red states, and really, it comes down to because Obergefell, Joe, let's be clear, Joe, Obergefell is still the law of the land. Obergefell has not been overturned, okay? So gay marriage has nothing to do with this, okay? This has specifically to do with abortion, okay? So that a red state, and in this particular conversation that we're having at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, being defined as a red state that is either going to ban abortion or place severe limits on abortion, okay? California is... amongst other states that are saying we ought to boycott these states and not do business with them. Now, what we found interesting and what Joe and I want to talk about, Jonathan Turley is a liberal, okay, in his politics. He voted for Hillary Clinton. He voted for Barack Obama. Anybody calls him a right winger, guess what? You're full of crap. Joe, we haven't said that in a long time at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. You're full of crap. Okay, if you're going to say that Jonathan Turley is some closet conservative, because he is not. Okay, what he is a constitutionalist, and he believes in the Constitution, and he is a self-described liberal. Constitutional law scholar Jonathan Turley of George Washington University, he is proposing something that I find very interesting, and I'm going to kick that over to Joe Rossinello.
Well, basically, he's saying that there should be some type of political coalitions among states. Basically to fight some of these issues. I guess my first starting point on this is California should never have been allowed to do this. I don't believe in sanctuary states.
Let me stop you real quick, Joe. If California says we're not going to do business with Texas, just throwing that out there, do you believe that the federal government has a role in that dispute?
Heck yes. Absolutely.
Okay, no, I'm not saying that as a statement.
Absolutely. And I'll be honest with you. Question. This is where the president steps in, Republican or Democrat, and says tough. You see, this is where I said this even when Trump, this is where I don't understand why they wouldn't. Tough. You are part of the country. And here's the deal. I have leverage over you. Always remember that. Leverage is what moves the ball. I'll cut my federal funds to your state. I can do that. I'm the president. I control money that comes to you that you need. You sure as heck are going to do business with Texas. Tough. And if you don't get my money. And then deal with your own constituents and they will vote you out.
I will just say as a point, I just think as a point of fact, Joe, this is a fraternal correction. Congress controls the purse strings. So Congress should be the one to do that. Okay, not the now the president could support Congress in their authority because they control the purse strings. But I would agree with you. If let's say, for argument's sake, Joe, everybody, the consensus is the November we're going to have a red wave. I wish people would stop pinning their hopes on a red wave. It's probably going to happen politically, but please, you've been more. I like to, Joe. Can I digress for a second? Do you mind? I'd like to remind the conservatives in our audience, you've been more let down by the left, by the right, by your conservative people that you voted for, then you've been attacked by the left. It's the conservatives that have allowed this to happen. So please stop talking to me about red waves. Even though it would be a check on leftist power, I would say that that's okay. But stop with this. The country's going to be saved come November 6th or whenever it is when there's this red wave. But I would say this. The president, because the president, obviously, I think this is what you were alluding to as the bully pulpit. The president can support the Congress when the Congress says, again, whether they're run by Pelosi, who is not a fair person, or Kevin McCarthy, and say to the states individually, we've all gotten together and we're telling all of you, because power shifts, Joe, in Washington.
Of course it does.
From Republicans to Democrats. You will not boycott another state. Okay, Gavin Newsom, if you boycott Texas or Alabama or Mississippi or Nebraska or whatever the case might be, okay, we're cutting off your federal funds.
Well, that's all you have to do, and they will. It's just like how people get managed in corporate America. It's economic violence.
But Joe, let me ask you this. Look, I have a question, but I have a question. This I want to pivot back to Jonathan Turley. What he's saying is that if there was a group of states, I don't even want to call them, Joe, red states. I just want to say if a group of states who agreed that one state should not be able to boycott another, and they got together and they said, according to Turley, in a NATO-like way, if California, you boycott Indiana, let's just say Indiana, okay, we will boycott you. Like, let's say it's a coalition of about 24, 25, half the country goes, Joe, you and I tell the people all the time, we are in a de facto civil war and the country's split. Anybody thinks this country is unified, your head's up your you-know-what and your head's in the sand. So bottom line is, but my point is, what Turley's saying is that what you're proposing is that the federal government, both the Congress and the president, put pressure on a state, in this case, let's use California, and say, you can't do that. What Turley is proposing is to say, well, if you get a group of states on at least on this level to say, if you do that, to Nebraska or Iowa or Indiana or any of those states, well, guess what, Governor Newsom? We're going to boycott you. And we have a
Joe, I'm not going to allow that either as the president. I am
I'm not
saying
as a president.
States to fight.
And
I'm going to be honest with you. I control the power because I control the army and I will kick your ass. I will bring in the National Guard, and there's not a hippie in California who's going to stop me, or a redneck in Arkansas who's in a tree stand who's going to stop me.
But I
am coming in, and I am going to say, this is the way it is. Tough. You're going to play with each other because that's the way it is. And I will hold funds back. That's what a good president does.
Okay, but who are you holding it back from? California?
And it started with California, but this is all childish bullcrap.
But who are you holding the funds back from? California that started the action, or the 25 states that are reacting against California, New York, and New Jersey? Who are you withholding the funds? My point is, who is your ire directed at, Joe Rossinello? Joe, you with me? Joe, are you with me?
No, I'm here. It's choppy.
Okay. What I'm asking is this: who are you? If you're, let's say, the hypothetical president, who are you directing your ire at? California, who started it, or the states
It
that are
stops
saying
right there.
we won't do business with California?
But the federal government can stop that. Just like Trump should have stopped what happened in Minnesota. He made a huge error. I am not allowing you to burn a police station down. I called the governor. Stop it. You don't want to do it? I'm stopping it. And I can. How does that sound? I can, and I will stop it so fast your head will spin off your neck. I'll send in friggin' the Rangers. It will be that you'll wish to God you never got up that day. And that is exactly the deal. And that is, you're not here to cause chaos. And that goes for anybody.
But Joe, again, I just want to be clear, because in my heart, I know I agree with what you're saying. If you're going to do business, in other words, and if the federal government has the authority under the Commerce Clause to regulate business, okay, then the federal government, now this is what the left has always said, by the way, going back to FDR, where the federal government expanded all its powers based on the Commerce Clause. Now, what you're saying, if I'm reading you correctly, is you want to enforce the Commerce Clause and say to California, you cannot boycott.
That's right.
Those states. But then, Joe, but what happens if Gavin Newsom tells the federal government, F you?
You stop giving him money, Joe.
Okay. All right. I'm just
and
asking.
that's it. And he will stop. He will bend because he needs your money. Do you notice when Cuomo, there was a threat from Trump when he said, I'm not going to give you money? And he almost was like, oh my God, like he went to the press. They need their money. They can't manage their budget with their money. Things start shutting down. Like you need money to keep things moving. Basic segments of society, garbage pickup. Like it'll turn into like literally, you want to talk about a third world? Cut the money. It's over. It's over. Like that's brass knuckle politics. I don't even have to get angry. All I have to tell you on the phone is this: New York or Texas or whoever, listen, under the law, I can do this and you will comply. And if not, you're on your own. Good luck, son. It's like a 16-year-old who tells his dad, I don't want to live under your roof. Okay, buy your food. See how you can pay for your tuition at school. Buy your clothes. Good luck. What's going to happen? He's going to comply.
Right. Well,
I mean, it's just that simple.
But like I said earlier, under the Commerce Clause, the federal government has done all sorts of chaos since the New Deal, since FDR. Okay, and I think that they should do the same thing. They should come out. Ted Cruz, again, Joe, remember, we always talk about it, the Frontline with Joe and Joe on the Crusade Show, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. We talk about it all the time. Ted Cruz, Mr. Conservative, and Josh Hawley, Mr. Conservative. Well, all you guys, you need to get together and you need to stand up there on Capitol Hill and you need to tell Gavin Newsom, listen, Governor Newsom, you do not have the authority to do this. And if you do, California is not getting one thin dime of federal money. You will not boycott any states. You will not take away state-funded travel. If somebody has to go to Alabama or Mississippi or Florida or Kentucky or Texas or Arizona or Nebraska, you're not cutting. If you cut off one thin dime of that money, we are cutting you off from the billions you get from the federal
government. And that's
government.
the end of it. And it ends. And that's how people, you see, there's been too much. You know what it is, Joe? People are too comfortable. I have found in life, whether it's in the church or it's in politics or it's in anything, people who move things take risks. And basically the risk is this: you want to take my job, then take it. Meaning, like, if I'm a senator, then vote me the hell out. And guess what? I'll go in the private sector and I'll make money because I'm smart and I'm educated and I have connections. I don't need this bull crap. They're not willing to take it. Same thing with sometimes the clergy. Same thing with the bishops. I didn't become a bishop to go to hell. So you don't want me to do my job, then take my hat and I'll go back to be a parish priest. People are not willing to do that.
Right.
You almost have to have the mentality, I got this, I'll give it right back. I'm a public servant. I'm a servant. And if you don't have that mentality, I don't want you in that job.
Right.
Take it. Take it away.
Well,
And that's exactly like how people have to roll. And they're
political
not
office.
willing to do that.
Joe,
It's
I
just-
agree.
and that's why nothing gets done.
Well, political
you know
office
what
in
I'm saying?
America used to be, yes, I do. Political office in America used to be service. Service. It's public service. You're a public servant, is what you're doing. Now, do you have power? Yes, but your power is meant to serve, to be used. I know I'm sounding a bit idealistic, Joe Rossinello at the Frontline with Joe and Joe on the Crusade channel. Your power that you have is supposed to be used by you, because you're entrusted with that power, okay, through the democratic process to serve the people, okay? That's what you're supposed to do. Joe, why do you think, I mean, look, I don't know even how the left, how they can argue with this. Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband, buys 20,000 shares of NVIDIA.
Oh, it's disgusting.
All right. He bought, and Joe, on top of it, he bought 20,000 shares of NVIDIA, and he bought 2,000 options contracts. Now he's been forced to sell. Okay. But is that public? Now they'll say, well, he's not a public servant, but his wife is. She's Speaker of the House. Don't tell me that he didn't buy it based on information that they have. But
Joe,
leaving that aside,
disgusting.
you're a public servant. Why are you there 30 years? And when someone says, you know what, let's limit senators to 2 terms, 2 6-year terms, 12 years. That's it. So long as you could serve as a senator. And we're going to limit members of the House to 6 2-year terms. So if you're in the House, you could serve 12 years. If you're in the Senate, you could serve 12 years. If you're a House member, after 12 years, if you want to run for Senate, you can. If you want to run for governor of your state, you can. If you want to run for president of the United States, you can. But in that office, you're going to have a term limit. Why don't they want that? Of course they don't want that. Joe, they get there. You know what they find out? They got about a $200,000 a year job, okay? They have to pay nothing for their pension, nothing for their health benefits. They fly across the country for free on the taxpayer dime, and they live a pretty damn good life. Joe, last time I checked, somebody who serves sacrifices. These people sacrifice nothing. I'm handing it over to you.
Well, that's where, to be honest with you, it's our own fault. A corrupt people put in corrupt leadership. I mean, that's where, to be honest with you, the problems are a lot lower. We have to fix things on a lower level and before it bubbles up. I remember when New York was a mess in the 70s and 80s. What did Giuliani do? He stopped crime on its lowest level. Remember the washers when you come through the Lincoln Tunnel?
Right, squeegee guys.
There's a term for that. I don't know it off the top of my head. If you said it, I'd be like, that's it.
The squeegee guys.
Correct. But there's a term for stopping crime small and it bubbles up high. It sets,
right.
That's what you have to do. That comes down to families. It comes down to God in your life. Until that happens, nothing is going to change. These people are whores. Joe, I mean, listen, I grew up with them my whole life. People getting these jobs, do nothing jobs, union jobs, making tons of money because they know this, their uncle's this, my cousin's on the council. I've life. Like Joe, my whole entire life. It's just on a higher level.
Do you know how many people I knew worked on the park? I don't begrudge them. I don't. I grew up with them, okay? Worked on the parkway, toll collectors. They cleaned up the Garden State Parkway. Those are all patronage jobs. Whose uncle is a detective in Newark who got his son a job or his nephew a job on the Garden State Parkway? Well, what are you going to make? Well, you're going to make really good money. You get your benefits paid for. You work about 30 years and then you'll get a pension.
To be honest, it's like the mafia.
Well,
in a sense.
Sure
you become a made person. It's just a smaller version. This is why the system's broken. We have to build people that are faithful and fear God. You see, people don't have a healthy fear of God. You're going to die and you're going to stand before God. How does that sound? Like people don't think like that. They just do what they want to do. And it's the lowest level. We have to rebuild that. And then you'll start seeing it get better. But it's not going to until that happens. Joe, our culture is a mess. It is a mess. There are so many wounded people. There are so many wounded, successful people. They're a mess.
Right.
I mean, they don't know how to function life. I always say this to my wife all the time, the art of living. That's one thing I saw in my family. People married 65 years. Married, my parents are married 52 years. They lived respectful, they worked lives, they worked hard. People have they don't know how to live anymore.
Joe,
And
let me
we're expecting to have people run a country. Dude, they're a mess themselves.
Joe, let me tell you something. And I say this, I really don't want to come across at the front line with Joe and Joe on the Crusade channel. I really don't want to come across as judgmental. But one thing growing up in Newark that I was able to, it's a gift. It was I was able to acquire it, okay, over time is you get to read people. Because you look at things on a much more realistic level than, let's say, if you're living in a pie in the sky sort of life, because reality ain't that easy when you're growing up in North Arlington or when you're growing up in Newark. Okay, you learn how to read people. Joe, I work in a restaurant. I see guys 70, 75 years old. Okay, Joe, they got tons of cash. I'm talking about super duper ridiculous rich, driving a Bentley. You know, they live in a very big house. Joe, they come walking in with 25 and 30-year-old. Sorry, if they're not hookers, they might as well be. Okay. And I think in my mind, okay, she needs help. The chick needs help. Okay. She needs to break out of that lifestyle. But I think in my mind, a guy who probably, I know, not probably, has all the money in the world. Because if you pull up with a $250,000 Aston Martin or a Bentley, you got money, Joe. Okay. And I look at these guys, and it's all about, at 75 years old, probably doing what they were doing when they were 40. In other words, it's all about sex. It's all about, drugs, or in this case, alcohol, martinis, things like that. 75, no wedding ring, no wife. A lot of them complain to me because they talk to me. In other words, yeah, my wife left me 5 years ago, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people in America would consider that guy successful. I think he's a broken man.
Well,
And again,
of
I
course
don't
he
want to
is.
sound judgmental, Joe.
No, but
I
it's
give you the
not.
last
And
30
he
seconds,
knows it,
Joe.
Joe.
Joe,
He
I give you the
knows it.
last 30. Joe, I give you the last 30 seconds because we got to go. Go ahead.
He knows it. We have to fix things. Listen, we have to work, obviously, in the political realm. We have to speak up, but we have to fix things, to be honest with you, on the lowest common denominator. The family has to get stronger, and people have to see the efficacy of following God. People have to see it. And I got news for you. If they don't see it, they're not going to do it. Because as society gets darker, the light of Christ will shine brighter. And that is what's going to make people change. But that's our job. It's not just the talking. You have to talk.
You have to do it.
Speak the truth and speak it clearly. But you also have to be willing to suffer. You have to stand your ground, and you have to show people a better way. And I'll be honest with you, they're watching you. They're watching you closely. Don't think they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Joe,
going to tell you this right now. That is what will change America. And it's up to Catholics. People have to stop bickering and start living in the light of Christ.
We're going to pick that up, Joe Arsenello. We're going to pick that theme up next week. I'll make sure that we're going to talk about the need, particularly for Catholic men, to step up in this. Joe, great conversation, as always, at the front line with Joe and Joe. The one story we did not get to that we'll leave the Crusade Channel audience with, you probably heard about it, but in case you didn't, an 80-year-old woman was banned from a community pool for complaining about a cross-dressing man watching little girls undress in the locker room. Like I said, the 80-year-old woman was banned. It's an interesting read. Shows you what the country we live in right now. Joe Arsenello, Great job tonight at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, help us out, Joe Rossinello and me, on our social media at the Frontline TV, the Frontline TV. Like, subscribe, share, and do all that fun stuff. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon. You have to go. So we want to thank everybody for joining us at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello on the Crusade Channel. And wherever you see Joe and I on social media, please like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Help us out if you can. Remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.